Good evening, everyone. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and I'm your host, Joe Abbate. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you, Jordan, Chelsea, and Susie, for helping me put the show together. I do have a special guest coming up in just a moment, but before we do that, we need to thank our sponsors, Motion Pro, Vintco, Preston Petty Products, Racer X, Full Circle Racing, the International Motocross Museum, and, of course, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Don't forget to keep sharing the show. Somebody's going to win a sticker sheet just like this, compliments of Vintco.com. We'll announce that on the page tomorrow. And we'll get you a sticker sheet just like that. My guest tonight has been the vice president of a company we're all very, very familiar with from the old days of motocross. They're still out there today. The company is called DG. We're all familiar with that. He's also been a professional mechanic. He's an excellent photographer. He's put on some of the greatest parties in Southern California that we've ever seen in the motocross industry. I want to welcome as my guest tonight, Mr. Tim Buck. Tim, thank you for joining me.
Hey, Joe, you're making me blush here.
Well, everything I said is true, Tim. So it's not it's how what do they say? It's not bragging if you really did it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess I lived it.
You did. You did. And you know, Tim, there comes a time in all of our lives when we're young enthusiasts about motocross and dirt bikes. We have that one aha moment. And I'd like to know, going back to your youth, what was that moment for you? When did you first become interested in off-road bikes and motorcycles?
Well, early on when I was in high school, I had like 3 friends that raced motorcycles. They were already experts, and that they got me into it. But the aha moment for me was going to the '72 Trans Am or Trans USA, I don't know, Trans Am, whatever, and watching DeCoster and Joe Robert and Sylvain Gabor's racing all on the same day, and all the Americans. And, I was so new to it. I didn't know from anything about it, but I got a big education. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We actually rode our bicycles from a friend of mine, John Laporto, and myself. We had 10 speeds that were set up like little mountain bikes early on back then. Right. And we rode our bikes from Riverside through Corona all the way up Black Star Canyon Road, over the mountains, into the back coming down by Lake Irvine, and rode our bikes all the way down to the racetrack and watched the races. And that's when I first started taking pictures too. I had a little swinger camera, the ones where you had to do the little twist and
sure.
And then pull them out. I had one of those, and I took a bunch of pictures. In fact, I have one that Joe Robert actually autographed for me when he was out here at the Hopetown reunion. Yeah. But that's my aha moment when I watched all of them, to be honest with you. Seeing them on top of Bonsai, seeing all 3 of them on top of Bonsai Hill, watching everybody take their lines, and I stood there and watched them. That was when I was hooked.
So how soon after that did you get a bike, and what were some of your early experiences with riding off-road in Southern California?
Well, funny thing is, when I was a little kid, when I was 5th, 6th grade, I lived on this one street, and at the end there was the hills, just the hills in Riverside. And every day, Bruce Ogilvie, who you probably know, that name, and he was off-road manager for Honda. I went to high school. I went from 5th grade all through high school with him, and every day he would come by on his little mini bike, Taco mini bike, whatever it was. He'd always go, not every day, but he'd go up there, and I would see him, and I would bug my dad, I want a bike. And I bugged him so much one day, he cracks me in the head and says, don't ever ask me for another bike until you're 18, you can go buy yourself. So I didn't. I never rode a motorcycle in my life until I was 18. And so a friend of mine, Jimmy Latendris, I worked with him. We put up awnings and screen reading and stuff. He had a 69 Penton 125, and he sold to me for $400. And I got that on a Friday night. On my birthday, it was a Friday, and I went and bought it myself. And Saturday, I went to Lamb's Canyon in Beaumont and raced it. And of course, my dad went with me, and there was 3 motos back then, and I did horribly, but the second moto, I hole shot, and there was a left-hand turn, and I didn't even make it. I went flying into the deer brush, but my dad was hooked then. And then so once that happened, and that was it. We were going at it. But I was always behind the curve on endurance and all that stuff. Not riding until I was 18, so I never really got a chance to excel with the big boys.
But your dad did, after you got to that point of being 18 years old and purchasing your own bike, your dad did support your endeavor to race.
Oh, he was hooked. He was hooked in a hot second. And the way we really got him hooked is there was a race at Dead Man's Point, and I told him I was going to race in it. I was not 18. I go, hey man, my friends let me race his bike, and I was totally bluffing him, and so I went out there, and he showed up thinking I was going to race. And I said, oh, the guy's bike broke. But he watched the races, and he was pretty interested in them. So when he went with me to the races, he was already kind of hooked. But after that, he was working on my bike, and he went to every race I ever raced.
Well, was your mom involved too, or not really?
Yeah, she went and watched me race once. She went and watched me race once, and then she was afraid to come out. But yeah, she made up for it. She's a moto mom, She. You know the vintage motocross, and she's out there. She was out there for all those, and got adopted by the vintage motocross society, whatever. Yeah.
I got to just interrupt you for a second here, Tim, because Motion Pro is still running a great special, 20% off across the board on everything at Motion Pro except custom-made cables. When you check out, go to the checkout box, and you're going to see a place to put your code. The code is MP9135. That's MP9135. 20% off everything across the board at Motion Pro. Did you have any siblings that rode, Tim? I know you had a couple of brothers.
I had one brother, my brother Lauren, who's passed away now. But he tried. I was already a pretty good intermediate when he decided he was going to start racing, and he bought the same thing. He never rode bikes, and he bought a CZ250, decided to go out to race, and crashed so many times in one leg, he got his leg swollen, got blood clots in it, and that was the end of his racing. he wasn't cut out for it.
Now, the bike you bought from your friend, what bike did you say it was? A Sachs, or what was it?
It was a 69 Penton 125. It had.
I knew it had something to do with Sachs. What other bikes did you have after that, and how long did that amateur racing career go?
Well, that thing had that Penton had it wasn't 5-speed or 6-speed, but it had 10 neutrals in it, so that didn't last me long. And we went out and bought a CZ 125 of all the stupid things to buy, and it ended up being the money pit. But my dad, he was pretty brilliant with that stuff, and we built that up really nice, and it hauled ass. We had a good time with it, and it got me into the intermediate ranks, and I rode that for quite a bit. My racing career isn't anything to speak of, but I did get to be expert, and I raced against mostly local stuff. When I got to go to race back at Carlsbad, that was a big thing. But I raced a lot with Davey Williams because we were best friends, and of course, first time I ever raced, raced against Steve Bauer, who I ended up wrenching for. But it was mostly local stuff I raced. But at least I got fast enough to be an expert and get whole shots and have fun and make my dad happy. But
sure,
that was
and you never really got hurt, did you?
No, never really. I got banged up all the time, but you say you never got hurt then, but then cleaning a knee operation and 2 neck operations later, in the 10 years ago. So yeah, it's cumulative, I guess, with everybody.
You just mentioned Steve Bauer, and we're going to be talking about your time as a professional mechanic for him. But where did your mechanical skills, where did you really hone that in order to become a mechanic to that level? Was it it had to be more than just owning a CZ?
Well, my dad was he was in the Air Force, and he was a crew chief on B-52, C-119, C-124s, all that. He was super mechanical, and I was always around him working on cars. He made me work on everything, on my bikes, everything like that. Heck, once I blew the tranny out of this Chrysler we had, and he made me tear the whole engine out, change everything by myself. I was still in high school, but it's just, I think it's probably just kind of inherited. My brothers were super mechanical, and one of my brothers owned BMW repair shop, one of the most successful ones in LA at the time. Not at the time, but later in life. But we were all super mechanical, so it just kind of happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when you work in, back then you didn't have all the stuff they have now. If you had a bike and you had to fix it, you had to be innovative and figure it all out yourself.
Yeah.
And so between my dad and I, that's what we did. That's not a story that's exceptional to myself. Everybody had to do that. Everybody had to work on bikes and learn how to work on them to keep them running. And then if you wanted to make them modify, make them really nice, you had to put your thinking hat on. But it just happened. I became pretty mechanical and got I don't know, and, that led to wrenching for Steve when I realized my racing wasn't going to go, wasn't going to be any big star. I thought, well, I wanted to stay in the industry, so might as well just, I was a better mechanic than I was a racer, put it that way.
Yeah, I can completely relate to what you're saying. Completely. Tim, I've got a picture of you here, but this looks like a little bit way later in your career. I don't think you were. This is not right after the Penton years. What is going on here? Is this a vintage race you decide to enter, or who's that with you? What happened?
Yeah, so that's the race before Glen Helen National in 1993, and they had a industry celeb race, and then so they had all these racers, and some of them were so good. In fact, the guy next to me is Greg Bastick, and he at the time was a 125 vintage national champ, and he worked for I forget the name of the magazine, but he had done an article.
Yeah.
What was it, Motor Journal or something like that. It was in the East Coast, but he had done an article about my dad and I and the CZs and stuff. So we were buddies, and so we were just on the line bullshit. And that's a good story on that too, if you want to hear it.
Of course I want to hear it. And you know what? I want to say something. I happen to know Greg Bastick very well. The name of the thing was Motorcycle Journal. He was the editor. Yeah. He was a good photographer, and he was a fast racer too. So I do know Greg, and I can't believe it's such a small world, because that picture's from '93. I didn't meet Greg probably until early 2000, after I got started for a couple of years in vintage motocross. But go on with the Greg Bastick story. What was funny about it?
Okay, it wasn't about him, but we were on the line just right after that, and we're just sitting there, shooting the shit, and here comes DeCoster walking down the line, just cruising along, and I was an acquaintance of him somewhat, I should tell you, when I first met him, he'd crack up. It's a good one too, but he was walking down the line, and he's looking at me, and he sees me all DG'd out. And then the bike that I had, it was this guy's that lent it to me, and it had FMF stickers all over it. And so he's walking down, he stops, and he's looking at me, and he's going, he walks up to me and goes, "Tim," he goes, "you're Mr. DG, why do you have FMF stickers all over?" And he's laughing, and he's giving me so much crap about it. And I'm like in shock that he walked up to me in the first place. He's got his foot up on the starting gate, and he's just going, yeah, he's laughing, he's making a big joke out of it. And all I'm doing is thinking, here I am getting ready to start a race, and Roger DeCoster is sitting here bullshitting with me. and I'm going, okay, I guess that's about one of the highlights of my life, when I'm sitting there getting a race and he's sitting there talking to me, But the first time I met him was at Carlsbad GP. And we were at the Ramada Inn, or wherever the headquarters, race headquarters were, doing tech inspection and all that. And I was sitting there with with myself, Steve Bauer, Gil Valancourt from Works Performance, and I forget the other people, but he comes pulling up in this Ferrari, and right in front of us, we're standing right by the park place. He pulled right in front of us, gets out. He's got a white T-shirt, Levi's, and just the coolest dude on the planet, obviously, right? And so he comes up and he sees Gil. I guess he sees Gil because I sure didn't know him. And he comes up right into our circle. So I'm going, God, Roger DeCosta's standing here right with us. And so Gil starts introducing everybody. Well, Roger will probably get mad. Well, he won't get mad, but he'll remember this. His fly's open. He's got the tighty white. He's just wide open, and nobody's saying a damn thing. And so he introduced everybody, and as soon as they shake, he was right across from me, and when I go to shake hands with him, I pull him over. I'm going, fly's open. And he goes back, and he's got his sunglasses on. He just looks around as cool as can be, and just like zipping that sucker up. And then that was the first time I ever met him. But yeah, so
that's
yeah,
really, really quite interesting.
Yeah, I tease him about it a couple times.
Yeah, two really good Roger stories between the starting gate and, of course, the Ferrari and the fly thing. So, hey Tim,
Right.
did you here's a good picture of you and Bauer too. I love this picture of you guys. And were you a mechanic for Bauer before the DG years or during?
Well, I used to race. We all three, myself, Steve Bauer, Davey Williams, and this guy Rick Stout. He was a pretty fast local guy too. But we rode for this guy Skip Gallagher, and he's one of my good friends. And wow, that's something. And then when Steve left, and he was riding for, I don't even remember who he was riding for, but he bought like two brand new 76 or 75 CR125s in the crate from Whittier Honda, and brought them back. And he must have rode for DG because he had all these performance parts. And so he had his house he was like a senior in high school. He had his own house, but he got these things in his living room, one of his living rooms. He had two living rooms, and he said, "Hey, Tim, I'll pay you to put these things all together." And so he was getting ready for the high school motocross races at the Coliseum, but I couldn't. I aged out. I was too old. I was out of high school. But well, yeah, sure, man. So I had fun. I loved it. Brand new bikes, brand new parts. Get to put them all together. I mean, that was like dreamland for me. And then he did that, and I actually wrenched for him at one of the Super Bowl motocross at the Coliseum. It was actually the first time I ever wrenched for him, and I was really still racing. But that was first time really. Then it was years. It was later after that I started wrenching for him.
So you were at DG and working for Steve a bit at the same time, and your DG years went from 79 to 93?
No,
Well, no, because you just said Steve had a 75 Honda, so it had to be before the DG years, so it had to be around 74 or 75.
Right, it was before. It was like 75, and I moved. I did that, and then I moved up with my mom and dad. They sold their house down in Southern California, moved up to San Jose, Santa Clara. So I was going to go. I still had the racer's ego, so to speak, and so I'm going, hey, Dad, let's go. I'll move up there with you guys, and I'll buy an RM125, and we'll start cherry picking up there. What a stupid statement, right? And Danny Turner and all those guys up there. Who's going to do what? But I moved up there, never bought a bike, and went to work for a hardware store. Like they hired me as assistant manager, and then I met some girl, and that was the end of my racing right there. But with Steve, he was a Team DG rider, and I decided to move back down to Southern California. Moved in with my sister and her boyfriend at the time, and I moved down there, and I don't know, I think it was 1977, 76, and it was right at my birthday, so it was a big old birthday party for me that I walked into, and Steve was there, and Steve asked if I wanted to wrench for him, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll wrench for you, and that's when it all started at my birthday party, and rest is history on that, so to speak.
The rest is history. We're going to take a little commercial break and hear from our sponsor, Vintco. When we come back, we'll talk more with Tim Buck about his time at DG and wrenching for Steve Bauer. We'll be right back after.
Vintco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vintco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vintco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vintco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vintco has to offer to help you get back on track and keep that ride going.
Right. Vintco also has a special going on this week for Kawasaki KX500 crankshaft. Brand new crankshaft for your KX500 1989 through 2004. Just $389. $389 gives you a brand new crank for your Kawasaki. Vintco, keep the ride going. We are talking with Tim Buck. Tim, so you wrenched for Bauer for a few years there, and how long after that did you get on board with DG? Because the Bauer years seem to be 75 to 79. Were you on with DG?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell us about that. Where did you get started at DG? What was your first job? How did you get an interview? And how did you climb up that crazy corporate ladder?
I still have that jacket, by the way, and it fits now.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Tim? Hey, Tim, 1 second. Thanks to you.
Hey, look at that.
Thanks to you, I got some clothes that fit me now too.
Yeah, you're looking good.
Yeah. I put on a couple since then, but you got me right down there to where I needed to be at a time I needed to be at it. You have this DG jacket yet, Tim?
Oh yeah, I still have that. Yeah, in fact, I think it's sitting in the same closet. Yeah, I break it out once in a blue moon.
Okay.
I've had people want to pay a lot of money for that thing.
I'm sure they do. Do. How did you get a job at DG? What was some of your first tasks there at that company?
Well, when Steve got hurt, he was all ready for a factory Honda ride, and he was racing at Orange Show Fairgrounds, and he was racing it was after the race, King of the Hill race with Tim Lendy and Rex Staten, and they raced the track backwards. Well, he got kicked off a big giant jump and landed, and it was a CR1, it was a CR250, but it had works forks, swing arm, all a lot of works parts on it. He landed so hard he snapped the forks right off the frame, and the front end right off the frame, and blew his knee out. And so he just kind of had a long rehab thing. So that was kind of when I stopped wrenching for him full time. I mean, I did some races after that when he rehabbed and came back. But when that happened, I took off and I just broke up with a girlfriend. I was all heartbroken and all that crap. And I went back up north and went backpacking I was out backpacking with a friend of mine. And my dad said, check in with the ranger station. Or check in on the phone, call me, And so I called him and he goes, hey, Severaj called from Mako. And so I called him and he wanted me to, I don't know what happened, but Bill DePrado had left and he asked if I wanted to wrench for Danny Chandler. And I don't know, man, I was so burnt out on wrenching. I wanted to take a break and I didn't think Danny was going to be with Mako that long, and he wasn't. He wasn't. And I told him, I go, I don't think Danny's going to be with you that long. The bummer is that Severaj can't really remember that because he had gotten in a car accident or something, and he just lost a lot of his memory from back then. And then Brian Lunas called and asked if I wanted to wrench for Jim Gibson, and I could have taken that, but what happened was Lee Chapin, who was the sales manager for DG, he called and asked if I wanted to go to work at DG in the offices because they needed somebody that in the office in sales that knew tech, could help with tech support and all that, and which was a really good deal for me because that's a Super Bowl across the Coliseum. That's Jim 51.
Were you wrenching for Steve at this point? Is that one of his Hondas?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That the number 129 is his bike. 51 is Jim Gibson. There's Steve or Jim Wilder in the red behind me, way in the back with no shirt on, sitting there in the back. That's John Greenway. He was a shipping manager at DG, and he was fast. And over to the right with the red, that's Harry Clem, and that's who I can see right now.
Okay.
But that's a cool picture. So Lee, I go, well, I'm backpacking right now up in Point Reyes, and I can start in a week or so. So I drove down there, and next thing you know, I was working at DG in those sales offices with Gary Harlow was the owner. Then obviously Kenny Boyka was the vice president, who in my eyes, he's a god. That guy, man, he's smart in marketing and ideas. And then Lee Chapin was a sales manager. So it was such an incredible team, and it was the Wild West. I'll tell you, DG days were out of this world, the crazy stuff that went on there. But it was sales. I worked in sales, and sales, and then they made me export director, and because I knew how to work the telex machine, basically, probably. And I was in sales for a long time. In 1983, Gary sold the place to the Dooleys, and then Tony Rogers, who actually, a lot of people don't know this, but Tony Rogers, he was a really fast pro at the time, all through the 70s, early 70s and whatever. Tony Rogers? Tony Rogers. Okay. And he was one of the founding FMF. He helped found FMF, Donnie Engel. And as far as I know, I'm pretty sure he was the guy, one of the guys, but he worked there for a long time. And I don't know, they ended up hiring for sales manager at DG, and then not long after, they bought a company. I don't know if you remember Dyco Off-Road. They bought that, and they said, "Okay, Tim, you want to get into management? We have a lease down at a retail store. You need to go down there and run out for almost a year." So that was down in El Cajon. So I went down there for a year, not even a year. Ran that lease out, came back. I was the mail order manager for that. We started a whole mail order market division there, and I wasn't there that long. And then DG needed a marketing director, and they brought me back into DG after it was a year and a half thing or something like that. But and so then that's when I really started learning. Bill Dooley, smart guy, taught me a lot. And I just, then I was in management, and then, I just had a sales team and just moved up. I did all the advertising. I did
all the print advertising in the magazines and things like that.
Yeah. I'd come up with concepts, draw them out. I had this brilliant woman named Kristen Cooper was laid out the ads, designed them.
Was this one of your ideas right here?
That's not one of my ideas. That's Jack Bright's idea. That picture is Sean McConnell, the Mad Dog McConnell Speedway racer. Todd Peterson. Yep. He was he printed our shirt. He was a warehouse manager, but he also printed all the shirts, and a lot of shirts. And that's me all pissed off because we're at this little commercial hole in the wall in Costa Mesa someplace at 11 o'clock at night after work, and I was all tired. So we're sitting there going, can you just finish this? And I don't hide my feelings, so I was pretty pissed off. And then they ended up putting that in the magazine. And then the bottom one.
You took that, I'll put it back up. You took that picture years later. You kind of recreated that at your house there in Tustin.
Well, you were there, and that's my sister Diana's house where we had our SoCal MX Pro bench racers reunion parties, and we had 5 of them. And there's Sean and me and Todd. And it's funny because we took that picture, and you know, I'm just going, oh man. I mean, it was a rush to go. I did that so quick. Got that. I was like, that's funny. But boy, there's a few years difference, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt your story about how you were going through things with DG, but you were telling us about you were doing making decisions for their advertising.
Yeah, I was in charge of all the advertising. We had a huge advertising budget, but you know, we did a catalog every year, and we did like 300 color pages of ads a year, and on top of everything, it was everything. And before that, before I got in there, they were using a couple different girls, but back in the day with Kenny Boyko, they used a woman named Barb Mizuno, who was a pretty renowned advertising agent. She's retired now, I think. She lived in Oxford or someplace, but she was brilliant. She came, her Dennis Kana guy, Kenny, they came up with some great stuff in the early days of DG, and then I took it over, and with Kristen, we came up with good ideas later on. The ATV, when the ATVs and jet skis all kicked in, and that's what I did. I did that, and you know, finally they made me vice president, and blah blah blah.
You said that there was a big advertising budget at DG. What was the big advertising budget at that time? Could you share that with us?
Mid 80s and late 80s. It was like 350, 400,000 bucks, which was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember 300 and something, but I'm sure it was more than that at one time.
Can you share with us? Actually, I want to know 2 things. Was there a friendly rivalry between DG and FMF and any other aftermarket guys that were in Southern California at that time? Or was it, was it a friendly atmosphere, or was it kind of who's going to come out with the next big idea first? Which gives me the part 2 of my question is, who comes up with these ideas like radial fin heads or aluminum swing arms, or where does all that come from? Is there a research and development department there? How does that all work?
Well, the heads and swing arms actually were before my time at DG. I couldn't even tell you who developed them, but I'm guarantee you Kenny Boyko had a hand in it. Okay. And as far as a rivalry goes, I think everybody got along. I know when I first started working there, after a little bit, when Tri-Moto started coming out, mm-hmm. And here's a story, I guess I'm telling stories. But DG was on Van Horn. It was in a cul-de-sac, and they came out with Yamaha came out with Tri-Motos, and it was the first thing besides the ATC Honda. And they so Harry Clem built one all up, radial head, mocked it all up. We're going to sell it, and we sold a ton of parts for that thing. But we had a sales meeting after work in this cul-de-sac, and everybody's out there, Gary, Kenny. And we're out there, and Donnie Emler pulls up in his BM. He had this blue BMW Bavaria, and he pulls up. He doesn't parallel park. He just he pulls straight in, so he's sticking out, the front end, to the curb. And Harry starts this thing up, and somebody said something about taking it up and down the street, and so I'm going, okay, well, I'll do it, So I take off down the cul-de-sac in this thing, and it's fast, it's a 175 and it's fast, and so I'm going, well, I'll just gas it coming back pretty good, and so I'm gassing it, I'm probably in 3rd gear, just giving it, I'm on it, and here they all are, they're all standing right there, and there's Donnie's Beamer, and I'm sitting there going, well, I think coming up quick, and so I go to turn it like you would turn a motorcycle to the left to go around it. Well, you do that and you're going right with those stupid things. And everybody's scattered. I went flying. I'm on the brakes as hard as I can, and then those big old balloon tires just going, and there's no way I was going to stop, and I just rammed his Beamer. I went flying over the bars and front end of his car, caddy corner, and landed on the grass. But I lucked out because I just stopped enough so that the big balloon tire hit his front tire and bounced backward. It didn't hurt his bike, It didn't hurt his car, but oh my God, those guys reamed my ass. I mean, Donnie was pissed off, but no harm, no foul. Oh my God, I mean, it could have been, you know, that was the last time I rode a 3-wheeler, I think. But yeah, so the rivalry goes. Obviously, it was a friendly rivalry then. I know it went back and forth. I know Pro Circuit, Daryl Bassani, you know, there was no friendly rivalry there, but it got better after a while. And you know what? It was up and down. It was kind of a roller coaster with everybody. And as far as innovative parts, I think everybody's. I mean, they all made the same stuff, right? Pipes. Well, we had heads, which were pretty proprietary, kind of, you know. But FMF had theirs. But I don't know that they competed each other because they were all, you know, I don't know, it seemed like it was plenty to go around at the time, but they were different. They were different, you know, our heads were different. Ours were extruded, theirs were cast. I liked them both. I liked FMF heads. They were cool looking. But how they work is all subjective. You know, I've heard so many opinions about what works and what doesn't on those heads. And you know, the only thing I can say is we sold a lot of them. And I mean, a lot of DG heads. But pipes, everybody made their pipes and whose worked better and all that.
I got to take a short break to plug one of my sponsors.
Sure.
Replica Motorcycle.
I need one of
those. You need a chain guide like that, Tim?
Yeah, for my 76 CR 125.
All right. Well, we got to get a hold of replicamotorcycleparts.com. They're making all sorts of stuff for Elsinores and other makes as well. That's replicamotorcycleparts.com. I've got some stuff here in the shop that they're making, and they're not just 3D printing things out of like a hard rubber material or things like that. They're actually doing 3D printing now in aluminum and in steel as well. They're making pegs, making all kinds of things. Get a hold of Paul Parkinson Sr. at replicamotorcycleparts.com, and he'll fix you up. In fact, if you need something reproduced, he's got a program to where you send him the part you need reproduced. He will make it for you, give you the copy, give you your old one back. replicamotorcycleparts.com. Tim, I've had a question for years, and I bet you it's not even a question anybody probably asked. I don't know why I noticed it, but it always ran through my mind whenever I saw it. The early 80s, Andre Malher, 3-time world champion from Belgium. He's on a Honda. He's racing GPs all over the world. Why does he have DG stickers on his bike? How did that happen?
That's not a question to ask me, but it was pretty cool. I think that might probably had a lot to do with Gary Harlow, the owner. And, you know, I mean, the world, I mean, back then the GPs, those were the world stage. If you had, you know, your sticker on something like that or a jersey or whatever, it's going to get noticed because at that point in time, GPs were way out in front of American motocross as far as, you know, I mean, look at who you had riding for them. But somehow, however, they got Malharb, Graham Noyce. Graham Noyce, I think, first. He wore just the helmet stickers. And I don't know where else. The helmet stickers, which stuck out in his back behind me, right there, right. Let me get this right. There. That's Graham Noyce. It's autographed. I had him. I used to have him, Hannah, and those two grab a whole box of catalogs and sign them. And then you know, it's kind of kissing ass on my dealers to get sales, but you know, I would say, hey, check your box when you get it, you know, and I would throw one of those things in the box for them. I did that a lot, but Malherb, he'd come in, you know, he would come into DG a couple of times that I can remember, and then we did photo shoots. Jack Wright was our photographer then, if you know him. He did all the really innovative scenes, you know, and all that. But you know, he would get the photos and all that. And same way with Graham Noyce. They'd come in every so often. You know, they weren't. It's not like they were in the United States that often, especially California. They were always doing their GP stuff. But it was always cool when those guys came in, and there was a train of racers and people coming into TG all the time. But as far as him and Noyce wearing the stickers, I'm sure that was Gary and Kenny's thing, and they probably got paid pretty well for it too. I mean, definitely our foreign sales were through the roof in those days. We would ship containers of stuff. Oh man, it was crazy. Yeah. Jerseys. I mean,
here's a picture of you. Here's a picture of you at Terry Good's house in Chicago with the flying fin, Heikki Mikkola. Tell us about some of the.
Great.
Say it again, Tim. I couldn't hear you.
You were there, right?
I was.
Yeah, you were there. I did an interview with you, I think. Remember that? I interviewed you for once.
Yeah. You know what? Were you there there were 2 fundraiser events. Did you go to both of them?
Yeah. Yeah. I went to both.
Okay. So this was the first one.
Maybe. I don't remember. I don't know. Was it?
Tim, according to our weight, it was the first one.
Okay.
And
yeah, because look at
because Heikki he wasn't at the first one. He was at the second one. So,
yeah, that's definitely the second. Those are great events.
There are. So after the DG years, you left there in 93?
In 94.
94.
I left there April 15th, 1994. I gave him 3 months notice because my wife, her mom had gotten sick. She'd gotten cancer, and she lived out in Cincinnati. And my wife was the only daughter, and no, she didn't have anybody to take care of him. And I was as far as I could go at DG, and there was some change. You know, I don't want to slam DG, but it was just some. You know, I'm a motocross guy, and
right.
So my heart and soul is motocross. And when they started edging away from that, and I went as far as I could go, and I was kind of burned out, and it was an opportunity for me to do something different. And that's when I made the change. And I said, hey, Karen, we're going to go take care of your mom, and packed it up and came back here.
I don't know if I want to talk about the parties yet. No, I don't want to talk about the Southern California bench racer parties. What I want to know is you went back to take care of your mother-in-law, obviously. So were you semi-retired at that point? Did you do anything in the industry after that?
Actually, everybody knows Vic Krause, Mr. Know-It-All, in Sidewinder Sprockets. Okay, so he was one of my distributors at DG. We were always good friends, and when I left, he called me and asked if I wanted to design ads for him and develop a website. So I developed this Winchester House. I mean, you know what the Winchester House is up in San Jose, whatever. But anyway, yes. This crazy website of a zillion pages, and somehow I learned how to do websites, and I took all his pictures. I did the same thing I did for him as what I did at DG, except you know, I added that website to it, building him a website. And so I did that for quite a while for him, and that was a lot of fun. He's a crazy guy. I mean, anybody knows him knows him. He's out there.
You know, I got a chance to meet Vic at one of the fundraiser events, and I do need to get a hold of him. He'd make a great interview, I'm sure.
He said, you know what? He said he would do it.
Yeah. In fact, I have a picture of me, you, and him standing together someplace at that event. So here's another picture of us. I think at the first SoCal bench racers reunion, I think was 2010, 2011.
Yeah. Now that guy in the very background behind you with the long hair.
Yeah.
That's Mike Hanley. Yeah. That's Mike Hanley. He was R&D manager at DG after Harry left, and after Teddy Boyko left, because Harry was the R&D manager, and then Teddy Boyko was, and then Mike Hanley was, and he's a good guy. Little trivia.
I've got, I got a picture here with this guy, and it's always a little emotional when this comes up, but Marty Smith.
Mm-hmm.
You and Marty, it doesn't look like it's in your backyard in Tustin. It looks like you're at a track somewhere at some event.
I think that's at Verona Oaks, I think. Or it might be Glen Helen. It was at a vintage race, and I'm not sure which place that was, but for some reason I tend to think it was Glen Helen. But that was that was after the third party, and he was there, and those T-shirts, when everybody, you got a free T-shirt when you went to that party, and we both showed up at the same time wearing that thing, so we got a picture. It was pretty funny.
So tell me this, Tim. Everybody's got a good Marty Smith story. Do you remember Marty early in his career? Do you remember what are some of your memories of Marty?
I have one story of him because to think that you're even in the same universe as that guy, you're fooling yourself. But it was the first time I raced Saddleback, and I guess it was a CMC race. They were using Bonsai Hill, and it wasn't even. I don't even know if it was. It's a vague memory. I don't remember if it was practice or if it was the race, but I just know the turn before the finish line at Saddleback. I was taking the inside, and I heard this bike just going, and I turned around, and this guy is speedwaying it all the way around that corner. I mean, full lock, speedwaying all around me, and then he was gone, and that's my Marty Smith story.
And that was when he was on a Honda, or was it a Monarch? Was it the early times? What was it?
He was on a Honda. He was on a Honda, and I don't even know what Honda it was. It was just, I just remember him blasting by me, and he was gone. Yeah. It's like Saddleback, I didn't race it that much. And if you didn't have, and Carlsbad, if you didn't have that memorized, if you didn't, you weren't going to beat anybody there racing there once in a while. I mean, Gary Chaplin is probably the only exception, and that guy can win anywhere. But it's just, that's about it with my Marty Smith story. But I got to know him a little bit later on, after through the parties and stuff like that.
Yeah,
he was
I'm going to do a quick plug here, Tim, for Full Circle Racing. They still got a special going on. Black wheel set, 18 or 19-inch for the rear, 21 for the front. Send your hubs to Tom McAllister. He will bead blast them and powder coat them, build you a brand new set of wheels, new spokes, nipples, hoops, lacing and truing, $775. Plus shipping and handling, $775 for a brand new set of rims from Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. Your photography, Tim. You have any pictures published in magazines or anything like that through those years?
Yeah. Oh yeah, here and there. Yeah, absolutely. The first one was at I worked at DG, and I loved taking pictures, and then they caught on that I could take pretty good action shots, and Gary Harlow sent me out with Rex Staten when Rex Staten signed for Suzuki, and we went out to his bashing ground in Pomona, Ontario, wherever it was, and took a bunch of pictures of him. And that was back when Barb Mizuno was our ad girl, and Jody Weisel was dating her. And so Jody was at DG all the time because of that. And so one day, I just gave him the pictures back, and they got all these pictures laid out, and Jody's looking at this one, and he goes, Tim, I'm going to use this for a magazine. And I'm going, sure. He goes, I'll give you photo credits. And it turns out, a couple months later, it's the cover of this magazine. It's a special edition high performance magazine that Hytorque put out. And it was the cover shot. And I was going, that's amazing. I couldn't believe it. So that was my first picture that got published. And then, a few here and there, Mike Bell, and just here and there. I mean, I didn't make a big deal because I wasn't a professional photographer. I just did it for fun, but I took a lot of pictures, that's for sure. And I've never charged, for them and stuff like that. It's just, even to this day, if people want to use their pictures, as long as they ask me if they want to print some, I'm always going to say yes. But
Sure.
There's, believe me, there's a lot of other people take a lot of other pictures, but I've just got to be in some cool places to take them at the time back then. In fact, Terry Good has all my slides right now.
Terry Good does?
Use them. Yeah, he's going to go through them for his museum.
Yeah, we were. I had Terry Good. He was the last interview I did, and we were talking about how many pictures he has, and it's like a staggering amount of pictures that he has purchased, I guess, over the past 10 years or so, while he is planning on building this museum. A lot of pictures.
I can't imagine.
I think he said something like 250,000. I think he said 250,000 pictures.
Who's going to go through all of those?
I don't know. And the thing is too, Tim, I mean, you need a guy sitting there who knows what he's looking at, a guy like you, or maybe me in some instance, but you probably need 10 guys that were there through the 60s, 70s, and 80s to when they're looking at a picture, they even know what it is. You can't just hire a kid to come in and say, sort out these pictures.
And if you're on Facebook, there's only a handful of guys that know what they're looking at and can pick people out. And this guy, David Liedberg, he seems to know everything. I tell you, Alan Wise, he used to do articles, and he covered races and stuff like. And that guy's brilliant. He can look at people back then and know who they are. I sure can't. I mean, some of them I can, but when I was wrenching, I didn't pay attention to the other racers that much. I was so focused on making sure Steve's bike was working, or I mean, when you're a mechanic and you're a privateer on top of that, Team DG, whatever, you have to go that extra mile. You're getting a bunch of parts and stuff all the time. So I didn't pay attention to who's who. I mean, if they had their name on the back of the jersey, that was great. Or if somebody I knew, that's one thing. But I was pretty focused on what I was doing back then.
Tim, we're going to take a little break. We'll be back with more questions with Tim Buck. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Joe Abbate for Vintage Motocross Q&A. When you're replacing a cylinder or a gasket or doing a top end on your bike, many times it's very, very difficult to get to the nuts that are on the base. And you want to be sure that you torque those evenly whenever you change a top end. Motion Pro has come up with this great tool. It's the torque adapter, okay? You can put any size wrench in there and you can tighten it up. On the back is a 3/8 drive. You can put your torque wrench in there, get the wrench on the nut that's on the base of your cylinder, and make sure everything is torqued evenly. This is a great tool. I have one in the shop. We use it all the time. It comes with instructions as well. Go see your local dealer or get to motionpro.com. And don't forget, go over to Vintage Motocross Q&A to get a 20% discount on all Motion Pro tools. We are back with Tim Buck. We've talked about the DG days. We've talked about photography. Let's talk about the parties a little bit there, Tim. You had 4 or 5 of the SoCal Bench Racer reunion parties. How did those things come about, and will you ever have another one?
I don't know. It was, there's a lot to that. There's 2 reasons those parties started, and one was a simple reason and one wasn't so simple. And it kind of was, I was living here and I wanted to go out to visit, and I was talking with my sister, and I'm saying, hey, let's put together, let's get a bunch of motocross people, let's put some of the pros together and let's have a party, and that was kind of my thinking. I just wanted to have a party, and then I said, well, I don't know, I've been out here for so long, I don't have a lot of people that I don't have the access to a lot of the people, and so I called Steve, and Steve was going, man, he goes, we were just at Marty Moat's funeral, and we were just talking about not none of us getting together. So it was kind of like, for me it was just let's have fun, but with Steve it was much deeper, and he wanted to have a party to get people, make sure people are together. So it was kind of worked out really well. So we all jumped on it, and my sister Diana, her, she's the hostess with the mostest, and her husband David, and we just put it together in that first party. All of a sudden, it was like there was 60 people there, Mike Bell and Rex and just a bunch of, I can't remember, I mean, a lot, 60 people, and it's racers. And then that wasn't even their spouses or anything. That was just them. And I think we I don't know, we didn't cater, or we made some kind of buffet line thing. And it was a lot of fun. And Todd Peterson made up some shirts and donated them. So everybody got a shirt. And then the next, we go, let's do it again next year. So the next year we did it, and it was much more organized. And we had to charge, minimal, just a nominal amount, just to cover a T-shirt and food and drinks. And people donated stuff. This guy Bob Hannigan, he lives in Havasu. He brought like so much drinks and stuff like that. And he's just a good guy. I invited him, and he just jumped in. So there's a lot of people donated a lot of stuff. People like Norm Hamaka brought their bikes. Patrick Johnson, everybody started bringing bikes and stuff and to display. And it turned out, that next party was like 220 people. And I don't know if you went to that one, but I know the third one when it was a who's who. I mean, you were there, Lackey, Marty Smith. I mean, everybody was there. That was a great party, and there was like 300 and something people jammed in there. And
it was like
that was pretty.
Tommy Croft. There were so many people. The chaplains, so many people. Harry Clem was there. There were a lot.
Yeah, who wasn't there? The bigger thing.
Yeah.
Those parties were kind of. There would have been reunion parties with the Hope Town and stuff. I think Burnward did something like that, but it was the first party where it was all pros. It was all, everybody could get together and and just BS about the old days, and there's no fan worship. Although I gotta say, I got a lot of autographs, and so did everybody else swapping autographs. That was a fun time, and everybody had the best time, and we gave out awards. We gave out humanitarian awards. We gave out all sorts of funny ones too, And the thing about the awards we gave, it was all voted for by everybody's people. We did a online poll. Steve set it up, and all these awards we did, like King of Saddleback and all that, it was all voted by their peers. It wasn't like fans or anything like that. It was all these awards we gave was voted by other pros, so there's a little weight to those. And but those are great parties. I was at 4 of them, but then when my wife she had gotten breast cancer back in like 2002, and then in 2012 it came back, and so I had to leave, and we moved back here to get her better treatment and all that. And so I missed the last one. And, but I heard it was really good too. But when we did it up, we had valet parking, catered, maybe, those buffet lines, they were great,
It was great. No question about it. It always reminded me of that. That song, I don't know who sings it. Ricky somebody, old song, Garden Party. I went to a garden party to reminisce with my old friends. And he talks about all the people that were there, and John Lennon was there, and this guy was there, and that guy was there. And that's what your parties were like. It was a real casual atmosphere with, food and drink and everybody just having a real nice time. And it just went on for like 7 or 8 hours. It started like 4 in the afternoon, and it was still going on at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, the cops busted us once, and we were too loud, and they ended up staying. Those parties brought so many people together. Brought the whole profession, brought all the upper echelon of motocross people together in just those basically those first 4 parties. It brought so many people together, and with the advent of Facebook, because that was the biggest tool to make that work, because everybody got on Facebook. And I kind of think that started the whole vintage community kickstarting with as far as all the pros and stuff getting together and generating all this interest in vintage racing again. And I don't know, I kind of think that had something to do with it, not everything. I mean, Scott Burnworth's parties and and races are epic, you know. So I think that was pretty good. And whether you ask me whether there'd be another one, I've had a lot of philosophical changes in that aspect, and you know, I don't tell this to a lot of people, my sister maybe, but after that fourth one or third or fourth one,
Yeah.
and you know, we were living out there, and you know all the vintage races. I mean, they have the Cal VMX races and all these vintage races. They, you know, no one, these parties were quiet. You know, they were under the rug, man. No one knew about them until they happened. And then all of a sudden, everybody's seeing pictures online and all this stuff, all this. And then, so I'm at the races and I'm having cool guys that I know are my friends just because they weren't pros, you know, coming up to me, hey, how come I didn't get to go to this party?
Yeah.
And, you know, why was it pros only? And I'm just going, and it wasn't an epiphany, but it was an awakening that I'm going, you know what, times have changed, you know, for me, why weren't you guys invited? You know, I mean, you could have been, you know, you should have gone, you know, all these guys. And so I'm never going to have another pro party only again. I mean, people might, I won't, because I don't have that exclusionary mindset, you know, that I want to keep it, that ship sailed, in my opinion. Those parties did their job. Let's put it that way. There's no reason for me to carry on. And I would love to throw a party with everybody, kind of like what Burner does, that kind of stuff. But it's already done. And so when somebody asks me, hey, throw another reunion party, I go, here's a better idea. How about I just go to somebody else's reunion party without all the headache and have just as much fun, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I stand.
It's like the old thing.
They were fun.
It's like the old thing about having a boat. You don't want to own a boat. You want to have a friend with a boat.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Tim, Supercross. Do you watch Supercross? Do you like it?
Yeah, I love it. And the outdoors this year. But Supercross, it's, you know, it's a lot of people, you know, still the old school people, everybody complains about it nowadays, but they weren't around to not watch it on TV back in the day, right? Right. You know, it's exciting with those, with Hunter and Jet and you know, Jet Lawrence, what can you say about that guy? He's phenomenal. Although he doesn't have the competition he should be having because Roxon's not around, Tomac's not around. I can't believe that there's nobody with his speed right now, but man, he seems to be a notch above everybody. He's like a new Hannah, so to speak, you know, only he's not American.
I mean, when he's qualifying like 4 seconds faster than everybody else last week. And that's just like, I mean, a second or two I could see. 4 seconds, that's like unheard of. So.
Yeah, he's something. He's something to watch. To me, it's exciting. I mean, I just want to see somebody start pushing him, and I think they're kind of starting to do it. You know, Sexton. You know, he's you know, obviously he's up and down, but I mean, he's. I would think he's the next guy that's going to be able to do anything. Hope so.
Well, it was just announced and it was just announced that Tomac will be back. So who knows? Next year, when everybody's really healthy and out there mixing it up, maybe we'll see a little more competition in that class. So
it's still exciting to me to watch.
I'm sorry?
I was saying it's still exciting for me to watch. You know, I mean, I like, you know, just seeing who wins. There's a lot seeing the lines and stuff like that. You know, here's a quick story, and I know you've been to some friend of ours, Steve Weidler, the famous dentist of the pros. We used to have those great Supercross parties where we'd sit there and Gary Chaplin, Donnie Hansen, you've been to them, Stackable, Gibson, Marty Tripes. I mean, it's just like we're all jammed in this room watching the Supercross races, and it's the craziest thing because, you know, like the races take off and you know, the women and even me, you know, Mickey D, we're all going, yeah, come on, yeah, come on. We're rooting for our riders. And we're looking at all these guys that used to race it. They're sitting there like this.
Yeah, I know.
They're not doing anything. They're all just watching. And, you know, they're watching something completely different than what we're watching. You know, they're watching, they lived it. They're watching the lines, they're watching the strategies, all this stuff, and I can do that to a point. But these guys are all just like this. And then after the race, they'll talk about it. It's pretty funny to watch those guys. But yeah, it's always been good times.
Well, Tim, is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to cover?
Man, I mean, I can tell stories all day, so I think you're probably out of time for that.
Well, you know what, Tim? We'll get something figured out, and we'll have you back, because everybody loves to hear stories about those days and things that they're not going to hear or read anyplace else. So you and I'll make a time to come back, and we'll share some of those stories. Okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it, because one of the things that myself and probably 90% of the people that lived it back in those days took it for granted, because we were just doing it. We were just living it. We weren't thinking about anything else. You know, when I worked at DG and somebody called and they're just like virtually out of their heads talking about, I love DG, or I love this and that. And we just go, dude, chill out. I mean, we just lived it. So we took it for granted. And I'm telling you what, nowadays, you don't take it for granted so much, because, you start appreciating those memories, the ones you can remember anyway.
Yeah.
I wish I took it for granted back then.
And that's why, and not that I keep going back to it, but it is going to be an important part about what's going on. That's why I think this is very important. Terry Good in the International Motocross Museum. I think that's the way we're going to have our Baseball Hall of Fame, our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And motocross is going to be 100 years old in 2024, 100 years. And yeah, we have museums throughout the country that are a little on the smaller side and don't quite have the history behind them. But what Terry has amassed throughout his lifetime, over 40 years, this stuff needs to be put someplace so we can go back and talk about those DG or FMF years or whatever it was, and people will really know what we're talking about.
Wow, those bikes he has, I mean, we've sat him. Hey, how about that? My best story of his parties was getting to sit on Joe Robert's RH 250 with I bugged him about that. I'm going, hey, we're that bike is sitting there, and everybody knows what I think about Joe Robert. I mean, I'm just going, hey, Terry, do you think that maybe I could sit on that bike at some point while I'm here? He goes, oh yeah. So we're walking around and looking at bikes and stuff, and obviously we get up that bike and he pulls it off the stand. He goes, here you go, and then walks off. And then I sat on that thing. I got a little emotional. And Dennis Cox was there, lucky to grab some pictures, and that's one of the highlights of my motocross life, is sitting on that bike, and you sit there and think about what that bike did, and not only the innovation, but what he did, and oh my gosh, to sit on that bike, of all the bikes, that's the bike. And then I got a little emotional on that one. That was a highlight. Hopefully, but yeah, he's got so many different bikes.
Yeah, and hopefully, you know what, Tim? Hopefully, maybe that's where that next big party will take place. Who knows?
Yeah,
you never know.
I'll go to it anyway.
Definitely. Tim Buck, I want to thank you for joining me today, for sharing your stories, and we'll have you back again, okay?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, take care.
Tim Buck has been my guest this evening on Vintage Motocross Q&A. In the meantime, I do want to, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to play a little commercial here, and we'll be back, and we'll wrap it. Got some other events coming up. One of them I'm really excited about. I will be there. George Ackerman's Moto Barn. That will be happening October 28th in Ruther Glen, Virginia. Get a hold of George. Tell him you want to be there so he has plenty of food and drink. Vintage Motocross Q&A t-shirts and hoodies are still available. Follow the link in the show description. If you want to become a sponsor for Vintage Motocross Q&A, get a hold of me. I will get you a sponsorship proposal package. Don't forget our sponsor, Racer X, one of the best publications on your newsstand now. That wraps it up for my interview this week on Vintage Motocross Q&A. My guest has been Tim Buck. Tim, I want to thank you, and we are going to have him back again because Tim's got a lot of great stories. Maybe we'll bring Steve Bauer in with him next time, or some other guest, and they can share some stories together. I'm Joe Abbate. Thank you for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A.